The following ethnographic interview recording is intended to preserve an important story of an Italo-Canadian individual. This oral documentation will be made available on the website of the Italian Communities in Canada, Heritage, Cultural, and Ethnographic Studies under Legends. The purpose of the study is to facilitate community involvement in the storytelling of rich history involving the Italo-Canadian experience. This project allows an individual to share their unique perspective and inspiring journey of navigating Canada while maintaining deep Italian roots. Through the collection of written and oral accounts, as well as photographs, we will curate a compelling narrative revolving around an accomplished woman full of passion and pride for her heritage. We strive to connect the events of the past with the lived experiences of actual people, as well as highlight the contributions of an outstanding trailblazer in the Italo-Canadian community. We thank you, Caterina D'Ambrosio, for your willingness to participate and your contribution to our collection. This is part 1 of the interview. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so my name is Caterina D'Ambrosio. I am Italo-Canadian. I was born in Toronto, downtown, Mount Sinai. Lived on Symington Street, and I am in the 50s. I was born in the 50s.
Wonderful. Okay. What was your first impression coming back to Canada?
I came when I arrived with the airplane, of course, and leaving a little bit of snow because I left from Torino. A little bit of snow in Torino, but not as much as what I found here, especially when I looked out the window and the first stop was Montreal. And it was, wow, like this. I mean, I remember snow when I was a child, but not this much, right? So, and I was, with my Italian coat and fedora and very fancy boots and little heels and said, where am I going? So the first impact when I came out of the airplane was my mom saying, and my brothers, where are you going? I said, well, the first thing you're going to do tomorrow is go and buy yourself your Michelin coat in Canada and your ugly Michelin boots, because this is what you wear here. I was known to be very fashionable. So it was like, no, this is not happening here. We're in Canada now. So that was one. And then, of course, other experiences that I went through as I got here. And I will talk to you if you need me to talk to you about those.
Yes.
So this was the first impact. It was the weather. It was shocking. And then, of course, this constantly cloudy days. I remember it was January, and it was one day after another, and it was cloudy. That at one point, I think I started getting anxiety because I felt like I was closed in a bubble, and I couldn't get out. And it was closing on, even physically and psychologically. It really did affect me. Mm-hmm. So that was the first impact.
Right. So the weather difference then, I'm assuming you were used to sunny weather and not the severe winter climate.
No, down south it was, you would get, if you would get a day of snow, it was a national day of not doing anything. Yeah. So really we would have, cloudy days, rainy days, cold, yes, but none like this, nothing like the cold in Canada. So that was my first thing. I did not remember. I mean, I lived here. I was born here. I remember my mother used to put the snowsuits on and go and play in the snow in the backyard. But, like what you can remember at 9 years old is not a lot.
Right. So you were born in Canada and then you went back. I don't know if I missed this, but what was the reason for going back to Italy?
Well, my dad did not really like staying here. I think his vision of, he wanted, and he said it vividly, he wanted us to grow up and in the, like, sort of immersed in the Italian culture.
Mhm.
So Italian schooling, Italian culture, Italian living, which there were immigrants back then. I mean, in the 50s, it wasn't like today. So it was kind of, I think he felt alienated, right? As like the old immigrants, right? They had their little communities. Maybe they're just friends, paesani from their own town, so they would get together and celebrate. But I don't think he did not. He was not thinking of the life in Canada for us children. He wanted us to grow in that environment, and so beside his family had a lot of businesses there, so it was kind of a pressure, I could come back there, no, we're going to get into the business together and so on. But the main reason, I think, it was that my dad did not like it here,
Right.
because mainly because of the children, because he did not want us to grow in this environment here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And then, so when you came back to Canada after going to Italy, did you bring any items of importance with you, such as photographs or family heirlooms, things like that?
Did I? Some things.
Mm-hmm.
Some things. Like, definitely, if you want to know, I brought my books.
Mm-hmm. Books like
I am telling you, I brought my grade 6, 7, and 8 Antologia di Letteratura Italiana,
yep.
because I am passionate about Italian literature, so I did not want to leave those behind.
Mm-hmm.
I brought those.
Mm-hmm.
Pictures, yes, pictures, many, many pictures. A doll that was given to me in the 70s by a dear friend. What else? I mean, yeah, little things like that, that for me are very important. But definitely, I remember bringing absolutely my Antologia della Letteratura Italiana. And there are 3 books, and they're called L'Atrio delle Muse.
Oh,
And
wow. That's
I
lovely.
have them.
What was school like for you in Canada?
I did grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3 here in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, and this is just a note,
Mm-hmm.
that I did not feel included in the school. It was a public school,
Mm-hmm.
and there were many Kevins,
Mm-hmm.
many Janes,
Mm-hmm.
many, and I was a Caterina.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean, right?
Yes, of course.
So yes, there was the picture, school picture. My teacher was Mrs. Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I remember her name particularly. And I did not feel that I was part of the class in grade 3. I felt always the Italian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was not, honestly, I was not, and this is how I felt as a child. I remember this feeling. I remember not feeling part of that group.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that I was not given the attention I needed.
Right.
And I loved the arts. I
Mm-hmm.
always did. And I loved to dance. I was not allowed to go to dance school because Italian immigrants is like, no, fai vedere le gambe. It's like, no, okay, it's not a thing we do. But I really wanted to. And I remember looking at my friend, she was doing Tiny Talent Show. And it was a show back then in television. So she was doing dance lessons. And I was good. I loved to dance. So I remember one time I was practicing the dance at home. My mother, my dad didn't know anything about it. So I just put a little underskirt, those tulle underskirts that look like ballerina things,
Yes,
but
yes.
it wasn't a ballerina thing. So I put that in my bag, my school bag. And I went to school, I practiced, and we had show and tell, and I wanted to show so bad that I knew how to dance.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was so disappointed because they did not allow me.
Oh,
So I felt discriminated
right.
right there. I was a little Caterina, Italian girl. And I felt that. And I wanted to blend in. I remember there are pictures, school pictures, where everybody, I was dressed pretty, you know, the school pictures. I was dressed pretty like Italian. My mother would actually sew my clothes. So the little tailleur, I mean, in grade 3, grade 2, okay. And I remember wanting so bad running shoes. You know, those le scarpe di pezza. That's what my parents would call it. Scarpe di pezza. Non si mettono I piedi. Ti compri le scarpe giuste. Like Italians. My dad used to go to St. Clair to buy the shoes for us because we were not allowed to use le scarpe di pezza perché ti rovinano I piedi. You understand Italian, right?
Somewhat. I'm still in the intro course. I'm learning. I'm trying hard.
No, the shoes are going to ruin your feet. They're scarpe di pezza, cloth shoes. No, you have to wear leather shoes, Italian leather shoes. So they would go to St. Clair and buy them. And I remember finally I got these shoes and I want to wear them for the picture, but I was not allowed. I sneaked them in my bag and I wore them and they took the picture. When I got home, it's like, why did you put these shoes on? You should have worn, why? You didn't go to school with these shoes. But I was so happy because I finally did it. I put the shoes and I was a Canadian just like everybody else. It was just so little things like that, right? And the same experience happened to me. So, but as I said, I did not feel part of the class. And the teacher did not make absolutely no effort to make me feel part of the class. And the same thing happened to me in reverse when I went back to Italy.
I was going to ask as well. So as you said, you didn't feel like you belonged. Do you think the language barrier had part to do with that, or was it just everything to do with the culture difference?
I think it was a culture difference. I think because it was a public school, and as I said, the majority of children attending that school was Canadian or of some different nationality. Okay, but Italians, we were very little Italians there, even though that area there, Symington, that area, Lansdowne, was populated by Italians. But that's the school for some reason did not have many children that were, I mean, at least in my classes, you know, like there were not too many Italians in my class, maybe one. I don't even remember. This is how, and I didn't feel the school. I don't remember anything. I do not remember learning absolutely nothing.
Right.
Nothing at all. I have no memory of what I actually learned. The only thing, it's funny, is I remember only, you're not gonna believe me. I remember the smell of the paper. And the corridors and those classes and the paper on the walls, and that's what I remember. It's weird, but that's what I remember.
Wow, that's very interesting. Wow.
I remember actually one day that I just didn't, that was the peak. I couldn't take it anymore. I just could not take it staying. And I remember at recess time, because my house wasn't far away, leaving the school, telling the teacher that I had a toothache. At recess time, I went back home. I didn't go back to class. I don't know what happened. I didn't have any consequences. I guess the teacher didn't notice, or the teacher didn't care to say, but I'm telling you, I went back home. I had that anxiety of going there because I did not feel that I belonged.
Right.
Because I was going in January and saying that the night of the Epiphany, the little old lady is going to come to my house and bring me the gifts, not Santa Claus. And every child was looking at me and saying, "Oh, you're crazy." Right. You know, that's not true.
How different, I guess.
But I believed it.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was how you grew up. So you were saying that it felt very different too, though, when you went back to Italy. Did you also feel like you didn't belong when you went back?
Absolutely. I've always felt for a long period of time an alien, honestly. I had this feeling several times. When I went back, I went to a private school. First, the impact when I got there, because it was a small town. Now it has high schools. It's a very cute little town. When I went, when the house our house, the streets were not finished. Like it wasn't finished.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like sand and, rural almost. And then they put the asphalt and everything else. I remember the first impact was weird.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning, we arrived at nighttime from, we got to Napoli with actually, our trip was on the Leonardo da Vinci, the ship.
Okay.
I don't have pictures of Leonardo da Vinci. Maybe one on the ship. I don't know if I can find that. But I remember when we got here, it was night. The next morning, now my dad's family was very well known in town, so you can imagine those small towns. Everybody gathered at the house. Oh, gli americani sono arrivati. Sono arrivati. The Americans arrived. The Americans arrived. And so that was the first thing that stayed in my mind. And then later, when I started going to school, then I understood the concept.
Mm-hmm.
Grade nine. I was 9 years old. I did grade 1, 2, and 3 here. They put me one day in I went to a private school with the nuns, all nuns, my teachers. Grade 1, one day. Grade 2, one day. Grade 3, they decided to keep me in grade 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to repeat the grade 3.
Mm-hmm.
How did I feel? I was called the Americana.
Mm-hmm.
I was singled out, me and my sisters and my brother, because I have a sister 3 years younger than me. And so we were gli Americani in this private school. And we were singled out, And I remember that the first day, now I knew a little Italian because my mother was teaching me Italian to write and to speak Italian. So a little bit, not too much. So the first day of grade 3, they had this practice. Every day they would have dictation. So here we are, our little notebook, open the little notebook. I was given a notebook, a pen. The first day of October was the first day of school. Dictation. Cristoforo Colombo. The title was Cristoforo Colombo. Yes, I said, I'm going to show them that I know how to write Cristoforo Colombo. And I write Christoforo, and then Colombo, I wrote Columbus.
Oh.
And then I went on with this title. So I'm sitting there, I'm giving all whatever I need. Of course, the nun, the teacher that was there, the nun, okay, she takes my thing, and that notebook made the rounds in the school. All the teachers, they went from one teacher to the other teacher to the other teacher, to showing all the teachers how I wrote Cristoforo Colombo with the PH and the H, and trying to understand why, the reason why. I mean, I felt like, what did I do wrong? And they were giggling. And then she corrected it. And then, from then on, I went on and, I learned whatever other students learned. And then eventually I was one of the good students. They grade you 1 to 10. I was always in 10, 9, 10, 9, 10. So I did well after that. So I was singled out, right? And I really wanted to make friends, to blend in. And everybody was pointing out that I was the Americana. I didn't have many friends. And I thought of 2 things. One, there was this girl here sitting beside me, and she was pretty. And I just wanted to be just like her. She had flat feet. And she was walking in a funny way. And I thought to myself, I wonder if I walk like her, if anybody's going to like me. And I started walking like her. And then when I went home, it's like, what's wrong with you? So I was practicing walking like Maria Teresa, because that was her name. That was one thing. And then eventually that faded out. It faded out because now all the little boys, because it was like, it was not all girls school, it was boys and girls. So now the little boys were kind of curious to get to know me, the Americana. But I found the way to get everybody to be friends with me. Because I remember that we used to play outside in the backyard. A sailor went to sea to see what he could see. And all that he could see was the bottom of the deep blue sea. And it went on. And I started playing. I said, all of a sudden, everyone in that school came up to me and my sister, because we were playing together with my sister, wanting to learn the song in English and start playing the little game. And then the nuns came up to us to see if we were saying something bad and making, because they were very strict and making sure that everything. So that was, ta-da! We conquered the Istituto Immacolato di Cittadinova delle Suore. There you go. And finally, there you go. And then I was good and everybody liked me. And then I was the teachers were calling me to be in the choir. And all of a sudden I was reciting. And then now the tables turned. Now everybody wanted to be like me.
Okay, now I wanted to shift gears and ask you, where is home for you and why?
That's a really good question. That is a really good question. And you know why? Because it's hard. It's hard because you feel a connection with Italy, and you feel a connection with Canada. I don't know how to say this. It's like you lived half of your life here and half of your life there.
Mm-hmm.
So you have kind of roots everywhere. I grew up, I went to Italy to school. I studied in Italy. I'm in love with the Italian culture and history. I love Canada for other reasons. I was born in Canada. Canada has an interesting history. My son was born in Canada. I'm tied to Canada because of my son. And through him and his experience, I got to live Canada. So I'm torn in a way, right? I'm like, my roots are together, but my branches are like this, but I'm part of the same tree. I don't know if I express myself in a way that I clarified my feelings for it, right?
I think so. I think that speaks a lot to how many people feel in your situation, feeling Italian, feeling Canadian, and feeling both at the same time. I think you described it perfectly. And yeah, and then I guess it has to do with your family and your children as well. Do you just have the one son?
I have only one son. Yeah.
Right. Born in Canada.
Born in Canada, raised in Canada, went to school in Canada, lives in Canada. Now he has a child and he's almost married. And I'm living and he lives and he's totally immersed in the Canadian. He's Italian. I mean, he knows how to speak, to write. He's totally into the Italian culture as well. He speaks very well. But he's also immersed in the Canadian world. His family from his wife's side is all Canadian, right? So he's totally, and he's immersed in this country. He tries to get the best out of it, but at the same time, the most fascinating thing, and I'm so proud of that I was able to transmit to him the love for Italy. He loves his culture. He loves Italy. He loves the sport. He loves the culture. He loves the language. He loves the history. He knows more history than I do. I even forgot about things and he's always reminded, his movies of the Romans and this and that, like all. And I am glad that I was able to transmit that to him. So this is how I live my Italo-Canadian life.
Right. When you say you were able to transmit that to him, do you mean like through teaching the language and teaching it like at home? So you were the teacher?
His environment here, like my family, my mother, my brothers, we're all here. I have only one brother that decided to stay back in Italy. But all my brothers and my sister, we all live here. And in my family, we always spoke Italian, and we still speak Italian. So the dialect once in a while, but it's mostly when we speak Italian, it's like Italian. So this kid grew up, and his dad is also Italian. So he grew up in an environment where he got the best of language. He was fascinated from a small age. I used to go to Italy until he was grade 10, 10 years old. I'm sorry, grade 10 years old, every single year. So for him, it was a summer experience. Going with his grandparents. They were great, Italians, and seeing this and that, and experienced a life in Italy. As a matter of fact, his best memories, he always says, my best memories, Mom, were when we were in Italy, going back every summer, and doing this and that, and looking like he would, his from his dad's side of the family, they had properties, land and stuff. And then there was someone that had a production of, they would produce milk and stuff. So they had the people who worked for them. And then he wanted to go and see how they took the milk out and all these things. He was so fascinated. And so he grew up. And then, of course, when he started learning history, he was fascinated about the Roman Empire, and like it's in the family. I say it's in the blood. And then, of course, a big soccer fan as well. And till this day, is, as a matter of fact, this summer I think they're going to Italy. It's like Italy. And yeah, so that's
wonderful. So was Italian his first language, or was it Italian and English at the same time?
Nope. His language was Italian, his first language. As a matter of fact, when he went to daycare, he went to Mount Carmel daycare on what's it called, Jane and Shepherd. I brought him there because the nuns were also from Italy, from some of them from the Vatican, and they were, coming from Rome, and they spoke Italian. So I did not want him to have a shock, right? Because he knew only Italian. So I brought him there. So the nuns would speak, and I would say, he speaks only Italian. So they were absolutely crazy about him, like speaking in Italian with him. And so, but slowly, then he learned the language, the English language. But it was a slow transition. He wasn't shocked at all, it was funny because when he started trying to speak English to show me that he was trying. Like I remember one incident when he said, Alessandro, sei pronto? Are you ready to go? Sì, mamma, aspetta. Mi metto le scarps e vengo.
Oh, yeah.
Mi metto le scarps e vengo. So he was learning how to do the plural, right? Okay, right. So the only thing is that scarpe, in English, you put the S and it's scarps.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. But for him, it meant a lot. It meant that. But his first language was Italian, and then, it was a smooth transition to English.
That's good. I guess it would be from such a young age, the way kids absorb.
Yes, absolutely.
That point on.
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. I think you kind of answered this already, but I was also curious how often you get the chance to go back to Italy, and if you want to speak.
Oh well, there was a few years ago that I actually went for 3 years in a row. 3 years in a row. And then I stopped because I missed my home here as well, right? So, and my mom, so I said, you know what, I'm going to take a break. But usually it would be a year, every other year, every 2 years. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Lovely. Okay. So before we move on to more career-related questions, is there anything else you'd like to add to your own personal story related to family life and living in Italy and living in Canada?
No, I think I touched on my experiences. I told you how I felt like going back there and coming back here. I was, just one thing I want to add, I was a little worried when I decided to become a mother that I was worried that my son would have not gotten the same education that I got back home. As a matter of fact, I had trouble following him here.
Mhm.
because I was coming from a different system, school system.
Mhm.
And now I'm here and my son is bringing me home all this work and stuff, and I didn't know where to start. I had a hard time. Thank God he's a smart guy and he's a smart kid. And so, but I thought till today, I feel guilty and I say to myself, I wish I had, I wish I was more familiar with the system that they had here and I was able to help him. He would have, help him out through the years that he went to school here.
Yeah.
But it was different because the things that they were doing here, we were not doing them there. It was totally a different system. So that's the only thing that, and my fear was, no, he's not going to get the same education that I got. He's not going to get a good education. I was really worried about that.
Mhm.
But then growing up, I had to accept the fact that it's different. Curriculum is different, yes, but you still have a lot of, if you want, you can learn about different things. It's totally a different country.
Mhm. Go to part 2 to find out about Caterina's career journey.